Hi, Dr. Miller. Good evening. I'm really bad at making these videos, but I'm going to try my best to make it not painful for you or for me. I like to make a lot of faces and turn my eyes away from the camera. So I don't have my notes in front of me, so I'm going to make it sound as well as I can. So this week we worked on risk perceptions and looking at the research and how corporations use that. Obviously, with the research, we're looking at how to make stronger cybersecurity models through looking at how the human brain and the human reacts to threats or perceived threats in cybersecurity. The foundational thought is that when something happens in decision making for an event, that it's rarely a rational thought. When humans are made to make quick decisions, we sometimes have impulsive behaviors. With the research from Beta and Nurse 2019, the perception of threat is often different from what it actually is, depending on how the human feels during that interaction. This perception gap leaves individuals to often perceiving the risk to be higher or lower than it actually is, based upon what they are seeing the threat as, and that human nature aspect comes into play here. That critical link between cyber psychology and the actual structure of the business and the security is what is missing. And often that is perceived to be the human as the weak link. This research dives into the practical approaches of cybersecurity using these methods. Risk perception is shaped by three things: emotion, perception, or cognitive. Sometimes it leads employees to underestimate severe cybersecurity events while underestimating ones that are more frequent. A major deterrent in the research is the availability heuristics, which talks about how how an event that someone has not personally encountered may be harder for them to understand. For example, if an employee has never encountered a phishing or high profile breach, they may underestimate that event to be something small when in reality it is huge. And then on the other hand, if you have an event that is highly publicized, it may spike the person to feel like that an event is a big one when in reality it's just a very small one. This effect heuristic in the research by Slovak demonstrates how emotions play in to the research that he did. He found that people feel that the risk is low if the emotion is small and they're clicking on a link and it doesn't feel like a big deal. He also found that if security procedures are more involved and it takes quite a bit to go through that, they feel like the cost of that is much higher and the perceived risk is also higher for that event. He also talked about how social norms are also created within the workplace. When other employees are doing it, it feels safe and more people have a tendency to do those things. For instance, if they're sharing passwords or if they are connecting their personal devices to the corporate system and nobody is ever caught, they feel like it's a low risk event. This creates a social norm, even though the policies prohibit and it is against the law or corporate rules to do such a thing. So just like teen pressure, the social pressure within a workplace sometimes outweighs, and it's obviously a bad situation in which they are doing those things, but it's not perceived to them as such. These internal and external factors go against policy, but create this practice of doing this within the workplace. The field of cybersecurity and companies are now realizing that this human element stands separate from and needs to be incorporated into the rules that they've already established for the corporation, meaning that just because these rules stand doesn't mean that people won't break them, and the social norms won't encourage them to have that teen pressure to do so if other people in the company and their coworkers are doing such things.